that's a whole different process. But that's for a political show. But with Meryl Streep, she like we were talking about earlier, just incredible.
She's unbelievable. Like I said, she could read one line and that'll be, forget it, Oscar nomination.
For one line in the film, Meryl Streep for the 25th time at the 2015 awards, if that ever happens. But in the end, I think come Oscar night, we're gonna see a fight to the finish between Meryl and Viola. The votes are going to be very close. There is no tie. There hasn't been a tie since when was the last tie?
The last tie was in 1969 when Katharine Hepburn and Barbra Streisand both tied for Funny Girl and for The Lion in Winter, and that hasn't happened now. That obviously that's like 43, 44 years ago. So.
And it's almost impossible because the Academy since 1969 has grown very large.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea. I think to make sure there are no more ties.
Exactly. So that's why, in essence, you're gonna. I think the British bloc is gonna probably give their votes to Meryl,
Absolutely.
But I think the American bloc is gonna go for Viola. And it's going to come down to the other international blocks, especially the French voting bloc, too. I think in the end, I think Viola wins it. She takes it this year. Meryl, even though Meryl is due for another Oscar nomination, I think if she wasn't nominated against Viola this year, it probably would clearly go to her.
Yeah, and the thing with Meryl Streep is, I think she's been nominated now so many times, and she hasn't won in literally I think 30 years. So. It feels like she's almost never won an Oscar, even though she's won 2. So I think where you can count her out is she definitely has some sympathy with Oscar voters, even though she's already won 2, because it feels like she's never won, and they want to give her a 3rd Oscar.
Definitely. So that's pretty much that's our take on Best Actress this year. But now we're going to go into Best Actor. And the nominees for Best Actor are Damien Bichir for A Better Life, Jean Dujardin for The Artist. For the first time in the history of his career, Gary Oldman for Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And of course, we have Brad Pitt for Moneyball and George Clooney for The Descendants. And when I made that long statement about Gary Oldman, it's about time.
Yeah, Gary Oldman's just a brilliant character actor in general. I mean, he does everything, and he's just an incredible actor. People may know him best. He played Sirius Black in the Harry Potter films. That's one of his best-known roles now. So, he's definitely due. He's playing George Smiley in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And, it's tailor-made. It says Gary Oldman all over it.
In fact, you know what? There are 2 roles I think he should have been nominated 4 years ago when he did Francis Ford Coppola's take on Dracula and also for The Professionals. One of those 2 films, he should have definitely been given a consideration for that because he played Dracula very well. In fact, you almost felt bad for Dracula. It's like the Phantom of the Opera. You almost, you may hate him at one point, but you actually kind of feel sorry for him. The same thing with Dracula, and he did it so well. And then in The Professionals, he was a complete nut job in that film, but he played a nut job very well. He would have been I classify him in the lines of like the late Heath Ledger or Javier Bardem for No Country for Old Men, and of course Sir Anthony Hopkins in the Silence of the Lambs. Like he was
very psychotic
characters, and he should have been at least given a chance for The Professionals. But for him this year, it's just an honor for him to be nominated. He probably will not win. And the same thing goes for Damien Bichir in A Better Life.
Yeah, I think reasons for not winning would be, Damien Bichir got a Screen Actors Guild nod. Gary Oldman didn't, and I think it's almost required you get a Screen Actors Guild nod just because they make up so much of the actors branch in the Oscars that you would need at least a Screen Actors nod to have a chance at winning.
Of course. And then as for the other 3, Brad Pitt, George Clooney, and Jean Dujardin. Now, we look at those 3, and you think to yourself, you think to yourself, there was a sure thing at the beginning. It was George Clooney for The Descendants.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was writing, broadcast film critics' choice. He won the Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Drama. He won most of the regional critics' choices awards. Jean Dujardin, however, got his first award at the Cannes Film Festival last year for Best Actor, and then he got his second one at the Golden Globes for Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy. And then came SAG night. Everybody, including the both of us, expected. George Clooney to be called for Best Actor at the SAG. And then when all of a sudden Jean Dujardin was called, I couldn't believe it. Jean Dujardin plays George Valentine. He's sort of like a take on the classic silent film actors like Douglas Fairbanks, the Barrymore brothers, Charlie Chaplin, Rudolph Valentino, and a bit of Fred Astaire. He's sort of a great tribute to the male actors of the silent film era.
It's all those people just basically rolled into one. It's an unbelievable performance. He's just brilliant in the movie.
And when he won SAG, I was surprised. I was shocked.
So was I. Because usually, especially nowadays, it's when it comes to Oscar voting and even the Golden Globes, it's not likely. Not like it used to be. You saw more upsets about 30 years ago. Now, once they want to stick to someone, they stick to someone, and they're going to give that person the award. So it was, I found, even for the Screen Actors Guild, I found that to be a bit of an upset.
Except back in 2002.
Yeah, that was the last real upset when Adrian Brody
for The Pianist. Yeah. And Roman Polanski, too, upsetting as well in Best Director, which we'll get to in a bit. But it was incredible that... Jean Dujardin, his character in that film, just like with Gary Oldman's back in Dracula, you actually fell in love with him. You rooted for him, from the beginning to the end. His character just, he let his pride and his ego get in the way of the greater good for his career.
Yeah, I think, if you see The Artist, it's an unbelievable movie, and you can see why it's getting all this attention. It's silent. I think... his performance overall, it's just someone who's basically losing his mind because he sees everyone. It's out with the old and in with the new, and he's unfortunately in the old category. You know what? This is a guy from the silent era, and no one wants him anymore. And it's realistic in the fact that that's what happened in the 20s with so many silent film stars because they couldn't adapt to the talkies.
Except, I think Lionel Barrymore, who was one of the early Oscar winners for Best Actor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like I said, not all of them. I mean, there are some people, like another actress, Janet Gaynor, who's another example, who was basically, she was in a lot of silent films, and then she transitioned to talkies perfectly.
Yeah, she was. So, yeah, it's true. It's very difficult sometimes, for silent film actors who have never had any dialogue or much dialogue in films,
It's actually, in a way, it's a little bit harder because, you have to really convey a lot of it, which is actually why if you see a lot of silent films, it's a lot of overacting just because, they're going crazy to show, look at us, we're dying.
And then, and then they have the subtitles for what they're saying, and that's and then you have the black and white subtitles, and you show what they're saying. But it's true, Jean Dujardin did very well in a time when it's been talkies. We haven't had silent films since. That's
exactly why Jean Dujardin was brilliant in this movie and worthy of the award because. He not only brought that Roaring 20s studio era type of performance that you would see. Like I said, he was all those guys rolled into one that you mentioned, and at the same time brought a little bit of 21st century realism to the performance, and it was unbelievable to watch. It was really great.
It was a classic masterpiece in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
And now
everything. I mean, the movie in general, every aspect. It was top notch.
And now that we talked about the first-time nominees, how about the veterans in the category? Brad Pitt and George Clooney.
Yeah.
Two of the Ocean 11 guys nominated in the same category this year. Brad Pitt played Oakland A's GM Billy Beane, who brought in a new recruiting system that was very controversial because a kid named Peter Brandt gave him this idea that you can get cheap players for less. Yeah, for less, you can get cheap players, but what they do is they get you bases. They get on base. And, he was doing something that took away the 150 years of what baseball was doing in terms of recruiting. Because the Oakland A's lost three of their biggest players, Jason Isringhausen, Jason Giambi, and Johnny Damon, to big market teams. And Oakland, as Billy Beane, as Brad Pitt's character says, There are rich teams, there are poor teams, there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. So pretty much he conveyed that character very well in that film. But in my mind, he looks like a third or fourth place finisher at this year's Oscars. And the person that actually could muster up a challenge to Jean Dujardin, like we've talked before, was George Clooney. He won the Broadcast Critics, he won the Golden Globe, yet he lost at SAG. And now he may even lose at BAFTA. You know, Jean Dujardin could win that award.
I think Jean Dujardin could definitely take the Oscar. He could definitely take the BAFTA. He could take what's left of the award season.
Exactly. So in the end, do not be surprised if you see Jean Dujardin or Dujardin, because sometimes Dujardin, because it's sometimes very hard.
Don't worry, I couldn't remember Meryl Streep.
I know. Oh, come on.
I don't know how I did that either.
I know, really. It's only Streep, but. Jean Dujardin, I think, will end up walking out Oscar night with the trophy. But just like with the actress category, there is going to be a fight to the finish between Dujardin and Clooney.
Yeah, literally. That's what I love about the process. It's literally like an election. It's like you campaign for all the votes of the Academy members, and then in the end, you know, it's you put all the money and time in, and then someone gets the award.
Yep, and. Now that we discussed the 2 lead acting awards, now we're going to get into the 2 awards that you've been waiting for this entire show: the Best Director and Best Picture. But before we go to break, here's another bit of Oscar trivia for you. How many films won the Big 5 Academy Awards? That includes Best Actor, Actress, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and of course, Best Picture. We'll give you the answer after this break.
There are over 400,000 Americans with Down syndrome.
They're going to school, working, and living independent lives.
When I'm not acting or working, I advocate for people with disabilities.
I am a teaching assistant and I work in a law office.
This fall, you can celebrate these achievements and many more by coming out to one of the National Down Syndrome Society's 275 buddy walks.
Meet people who can do everything that you and I can do.
Visit ndss.org to find a buddy walk near you.
Welcome back to Eric's View. Before we went to the break, I asked you a bit of Oscar trivia. Only 3 films have won the Big 5 awards: Best Actor, Actress, Screenplay, Director, and Best Picture. And the answer to that question is?
The Silence of the Lambs.
You realize that? Oh, Clarice, your problem is you need to get more fun out of life.
You told me you don't spook easily.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Heard, huh? Little variety.
Oh,
Jesus! Oh, come on. You're not gonna say that now. You're not gonna say that now.
And It Happened One Night.
I don't think I'll write that book after all.
Yeah, think of all the fun you had, though. Do you mind if I try?
You? Don't make me laugh.
Oh, yeah.
3 incredible films that you should make it a point to go see.
Yeah, great movies.
Now, and a bit of Oscar fact for you. Only 3 films have won a total of 11 Academy Awards. The first one being Ben-Hur back in 1959, 1997's Titanic, and 2003, The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Now we're going to get into the first of the 2 major awards left, and that is Best Director. And the nominees for Best Director are?
Michelle Hazanavicius for The Artist. Martin Scorsese for Hugo.
Are you sure about this? We could get into trouble. That's how you know it's an adventure.
Woody Allen for Midnight in Paris.
Oh.
That's great. We can spend some time together.
I think we have a lot of commitments, but I'm sure it's... Well,
what?
Terrence Malick for The Tree of Life.
You'll be grown before that tree is tall.
And Alexander Payne.
I'd like to know who the guy is that my wife was seeing.
5 incredible directors, a powerhouse right there. In my mind, the one factor that it really comes down to is the Directors Guild Award. 9 out of the last 10 winners have gone on to win the Best Director Award, and it will not be different this year. Michelle Hazanavicius won this year's Directors Guild, and he's going to win the Best Director at the Oscar.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think so. I think the only person who could maybe upset is probably Marty Scorsese for Hugo, because it would only be his second Oscar. And I just think, like I said, same point I made earlier about Hugo is that it's it's a love movie, and it could definitely he can definitely pull off an upset.
He could, this
He's
guy.
a vet. It's Martin Scorsese.
It's Martin Scorsese, who was like the Susan Lucci of the Oscars for years. Was getting it was getting looked over up until 2006 when he won for The Departed finally. When he should have won for Raging Bull at first, but nonetheless,
when you kind of think back, he actually should have won for Goodfellas or Raging Bull, but
but anyway, in the end, I think Michel Zanavicius, he gets the Oscar. He's gonna win it, but don't be surprised if Martin Scorsese is waiting in the wings.
Yeah, definitely.
And now on to the award of the evening we're waiting for, that we've all been waiting for, that you're going to be waiting 3 hours for come Oscar night, and that is Best Picture. And this year, the Academy decided that between 5 to 10 films can be nominated instead of just automatically 10. The nominees for Best Picture are The Artist, producers Thomas Langman; The Descendants, producers Jim Burke, Alexander Payne, and Jim Taylor; Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, producers Scott Rudin; The Help, producers Brunson Green, Chris Columbus, and Michael Barnathan; Hugo, producers Graham King and Martin Scorsese; Midnight in Paris, producers Letty Aronson and Stephen Tenenbaum; Moneyball, producers Michael DeLuca, Brad Pitt, and Rachel Horovitz; The Tree of Life, producers Sarah Green, Bill Poland, Debbie Gardner, and Grant Hill; and Warhorse, producers Steven Spielberg and Kathleen Kennedy. What is your take on this year's Best Picture?
Well, I think it's going to be three possibilities, but the main one that'll most likely win is The Artist. But the other two possibilities would be The Descendants or Hugo. But it's almost locked that The Artist has got this award.
Oh, I think so too. Not only did Michel Zanavicius win the Directors Guild, but also Thomas Langman won the Producers Guild. Too. So right there, it is locked.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
like the King's Speech. It's riding a huge wave of momentum. Granted, though, the King's Speech wrote it come SAG night and rode that all the way to the Oscars.
It was some last-minute momentum.
Instead of the Social Network, which was the big film at the beginning of the awards season in 2010. Now, for this year, there's a fourth film that I'll float you by, The Help. Another film to possibly consider. The other 5 films are just going to fall by the wayside. They're not going to get the votes. I think The Help, Hugo, The Descendants, and The Artist, those are the 4 films that I think could possibly win. But in the end, like Andrew said, The Artist is going to be the big winner of the evening, not just with picture and director and actor, but also with editing, which Michel Zanavicius is nominated for, along with Anne-Sophie Bion. And I think it could possibly win art direction and art direction. So add the 10 that they're nominated, I think they're going to pull out 5.
Yeah, and it's like I said, deservingly so. It's in every aspect. The movie's just top notch. It's unbelievable, from the sets, the costumes, the music, and the movie.
And not only that, just the great cast.
Yeah.
Without a great cast,
unbelievable.
You have Jean Dujardin and Berenice Bejo, who's, by the way, married to the director Michel Zanavicius. And then you have James Cromwell and John Goodman. Right there, those 2 actors in the film, along with the 2 main actors, really set the pace for the movie.
Yeah, the cast is just unbelievable. It's a brilliant ensemble, the whole movie. It's unbelievable.
And the dancing too, and just the fact that finally we are having a film that gives us a great tribute to silent cinema. It is basically, if it wasn't for silent pictures, folks, we wouldn't be having the talking pictures we love today. Really, it's that cinema that